This video is about the extended essay for the IB-DP students and students who are wondering what to write in their reflections. So the extended essay, the IB outlines that you need to have three meetings or interviews with your supervisor, and after that you need to write some reflections. Now these are actually really important. This is assessed. So this is not something just to discount. So I want to coach you through what to actually write so you can get top marks for Criterion E. So this is assessed and it's for Criterion E. But before we do, I've got to cut a list of 3 do's, things to do for your extended essay, and then I'll get into the reflection. So first of all, choose a topic that interests you. You're going to spend a lot of time on this project, so make sure you're doing a topic that you actually can 100% engage in, because Criterion E is about engagement. You also need to apply some kind of creativity and originality as well. So it's not just doing some research and just describing things. You need to add something of your own into this project as well. And that can be in the way of primary research or some particular insights that you could offer. So keep that in mind when you're working through your extended essay. Step 2, or to-do list. Your supervisor, they need to basically meet with you three times. Now, some students are kind of a little bit scared of their supervisor, and this is a project, an individual project. But don't be afraid to reach out for people to ask for some advice and for help. The research process is not a solitary process. So try to, if you've got a supervisor and you're a bit scared of them, ask other people to help. Or try to overcome that fear. Your supervisor is the expert in the field and they're there to help, so approach your supervisor when you need help, not just at the prescribed times by your IB coordinator or your extended essay coordinator. Now, if you are having troubles with your supervisor, raise it with your IB coordinator, raise it with your extended essay coordinator, raise it with a trusted teacher, because the process could be painful if you're having you're not getting help from your supervisor. So take ownership of the problem and see if you can find some kind of solution. And the third tip is, as you're working through your research project, keep the reference list. Keep track of it, even if it's just keeping a bunch of URLs and for a later date you can actually format them and you can put it in the correct in-text citation and create your bibliography. But if you're plowing through your essay and then later on you start tidying up the referencing, it's going to be a nightmare to try and retrace your steps. So just keep track of your references. Okay, about the reflections, Criterion E and the Viva Voce. Okay, so as I've already mentioned, the key here is engagement. You've got to convince the assessors that you are fully engaged in the process. You also need to talk about some decision making. So in your reflection, talk about how you decided to research this, or when decision making involves making some changes as well. So you might be going down some kind of a path and then you alter somewhere. This is the decision making. So if you can highlight some of these in your reflections, that's meeting the assessment criteria. Now, it also mentions forward thinking in the assessment criteria. So this also ties in with your decision making. So when you're involved in the research process, there might come a certain point where you start to think, hang on, where is this research taking me? Hang on, I think it's going in the wrong direction. I need to alter course. So this is demonstrating that you're forward thinking. It's like, hang on, what's the research question? What is my research question? I need to change course because it's not matching that. Or else, hang on, I need to change my research question because the research is leading me this way, and the body of evidence that I'm starting to amass is going this way, but my research question doesn't match. I'm going to change my research question. So this is you forward thinking. And also things like, okay, if I'm researching this, what do I need to research next? That demonstrates forward thinking. Okay, so as I've already mentioned, you've scheduled to have 3 interview sessions with your supervisor. These need to be documented. Now, they've got this thing called the Reflections on Planning and Progress form, the RPPF. So if you don't have your RPPF, ask your supervisor or your IB coordinator or extended essay coordinator. You need to have access to this. and there's going to be 3 entries. Now, the total word limit is 500. Now, this may pose a little bit of a problem because 500 words is not very much to demonstrate all the things that you need to demonstrate to get top marks for Criterion E. So I'm going to try and help you here and coach you through. Okay, things to cover in your extended essay in the reflection section. As I mentioned, decision making. The evolution of your understanding. So some ways that you can start talking about, I thought this, but then I started to think this because of the research. So this is talking about how the research is impacting your understanding. Decision making, I've already talked about that, and the rationale. I need to do this because. So if you can add the because from this to this because, that demonstrates that's the rationale for your decision making. You also need to demonstrate that you have developed your research writing. Your writing skills have developed as a process of this extended essay. So just keep in mind the extended essay for an IB student, you're not expected to have the skills before you embark on this extended essay journey. So therefore, through the process, you develop these skills. That's what the IB want to hear. So things like decision making, as I've mentioned, critical thinking, referencing. So in your reflection, you can talk perhaps about, I was a bit unsure about the referencing, but because of this extended essay, I have developed the skills. I have developed time management skills. I have developed specific research methodology skills. So you need to somehow in your reflections talk a little bit about, before I was low skill, now because of the process, I have higher skill in that kind of thing. That's what the IB assessors want to hear. Your research is authentic. So it's something real. It's a real situation. You need to demonstrate that in your reflection. Okay, here's a great one. Intellectual initiative and creativity. Now, when I first read that phrase, intellectual initiative, I didn't know what it meant. So I looked it up, and basically it's adding something unique to your project. So if you're researching a certain thing, so something unique that you could add, and this is where primary research can actually tick this box. So this is you doing some primary research, whether it's some kind of an interview with an expert in the field and asking them certain questions, because these questions I couldn't find in the research. So I'm going to ask these questions and that's going to add to some kind of initiative or adding to the research. You also may be doing this with primary research with observations. So if you're observing something over time, this is unique to you, and you can add this to the body of research. The other thing is surveys as well. If you survey 1,000 people in this particular demographic, because surveys has been conducted in this demographic, but not this demographic, so that's something unique I can offer. So if you can add something unique to the body of research because it doesn't already exist, then you're ticking this box. So the next bullet point is about the research journey. So you can see the tone of this reflection. It's like I started here and then these things happen and then I reached this point. So if you can kind of write as in like a journey a personal journey that you've undertaken, that'll tick the box and you're on track for top marks there. Next one is about how the research process has changed you as a learner. So if somehow you could talk about, I only knew these certain things before this research journey started, but now I know all of these things. So it has actually changed me, and it's also helped me as a learner because now I know how to conduct research, and this helps me in other subjects, and it's going to help me in the future when I go to university. That's how you demonstrate this in your reflection. Evidence of intellectual growth, same kind of a tone. I started here, but I finished here. My intellect has grown because of the extended essay. Now, this one here is an appreciation for that the learning and the research is complex. So research is not easy and straightforward. So if you were to write that, it means perhaps you're not engaged in the research journey properly, or you're researching something far too simple. So there are going to be some challenges. So if somehow in your reflection here you talk about how you understand now how much time and effort and energy and thought and how many different people are involved in the research journey, you've learned to appreciate. You can actually use that phrase. I appreciate the learning and research journey is complicated because blah, 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 blah. In fact, all of this list here that I've provided on this website IB Digital Society, EE, you could use these and use this as your starting point to write your reflection. That's what I'd recommend. So the next bullet point is about challenges. So if you can identify a challenge or a couple of challenges you faced during this extended essay journey, but also highlight how you overcame them as well. That demonstrates that you're fully engaged in the research process. Now, this is the kind of thing too that universities love, or even if you're going for a job. When you're faced with a challenge, how did you deal with it? How did you cope? Did you demonstrate some kind of growth mindset, or did you just want to give up and quit? So you need to demonstrate challenges, a normal part of the process, a normal part of life, and how you deal with it demonstrates what kind of a character you have and what kind of a learner you are. Okay, one of the IB favorite things is the ATL skills. So if you can look at the ATL skill list and talk about perhaps how you have developed some specific ATL skills. Now, if just be aware, if you do a search for ATL skills, there's the main categories, but then look at the subcategories as well. So when it comes to thinking skills, there's actually a lot of different thinking skills. So if you can highlight some of those subcategories of thinking skills like analytical thinking, computational thinking, problem solving. So identify those subcategories and demonstrate how you develop these skills through the journey. The other one, which is a bit more of a stretch, if you can find like an IB learner profile attribute and talk about how you demonstrated that in this process as well, the IB assessors will love it. Okay, next one is about successes and difficulties. Now, if your reflection is just talking about everything was wonderful and great, you're not going to get top marks. But you do need to highlight some of the challenges and problems and struggles that you've had, but also don't forget some of the successes. This highlights that you had these challenges and you found this, and this was a great thing. So talk about, if you have, sometimes students write too much about their problems. And as an assessor reading it, you think, oh, geez, they've just encountered lots and lots of problems. So if you can highlight some of the successes. So talk about some challenges and how you overcame them and you had great success. And this idea, this decision I made, the outcome was great success as well. So talk about some of the great things you did. So also if you can add something in about the actual research, the topic, whatever it is you're researching, how you learned something and developed something, your knowledge grew, your understanding grew, as I've kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. This is a bit of a repeat there. So here again, back to the decision-making process. Now, this talks about not only the decision-making process and the journey you're taking, but if you can somehow, the last couple of words here, how you progressed from the concrete to the abstract. So this is starting to demonstrate some higher level thinking. And if you think of the Albert Einstein quote, it's something like, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. So this here is demonstrating that abstract thinking. So the deeper you get into the topic, the more you realize how complex it is and the more abstract your thinking becomes. So this again is trying to demonstrate your higher level thinking. So the research journey is not like, here's the research, here's the solution. It's here's the research and now I've got a million more questions to ask because of the research that I've done and how my thinking has developed and my understanding and the more complex it is. And this is actually the tone of a lot of university 4,000 word research proposals. Basically, the 4,000 word research proposal ends with, here is the thing that I want to research. Now these are the areas, and it concludes with, these are all the areas that I've now discovered that need further investigation. So that is progressing from the concrete or something that you knew to the more abstract and the more questions you might have. So this last part, the key is, you need to reflect on your conceptual understandings, decision makings, engagement with data, research process, time management, methodology, successes and challenges, and the appropriateness of the sources. So when you're writing your reflection, you've got 500 words, use some of these tips and rewrite some of these, make these your own, and you should be on track to get top marks for Criterion E. Now, when you're doing your reflection and sessions with your extended essay supervisor, it's quite common that your extended essay supervisor probably doesn't know what they're supposed to do. So you might need to do what's called manage up. You might need to tell your supervisor what they have to do. This is quite common. So what I would recommend is embracing that phrase managing up and actually helping your supervisor. So when you send your email, talk about some of the things that you need to discuss. Now, if you're having some issues, like you're not sure about something about your actual topic or the writing process, when you're writing your email to your supervisor, say, can we please discuss this? I'm unsure about this. Can you please help me with this? So when the extended essay supervisor reads that, they'll think, okay, before I meet with this student, they'll want to know these kind of things. And it gives them a little bit of homework to do. So when they meet with you, they're armed and ready to help you and guide you. And these reflection sessions, these interview sessions, are actually really beneficial to you. You get stuff that you actually need. I've been in interviews where I don't know what I'm doing and the student doesn't know what they're doing. And it's a waste of my time, a waste of their time. So to help with the process, when you write your email to your extended essay supervisor asking them for a meeting, copy and paste this. In our first, dear supervisor, in our first meeting, can we please meet next Tuesday and we need to talk about this. Your second part should be if there's something specific that you really need. So you can talk about, I'm also having concerns about this and this and this. Now, what that means is when the extended essay supervisor receives this email, they read that. They read what they're supposed to be meeting about, and they read about what you need and struggles you might be having and some help that you may need. And they'll do their homework. And then when they meet, it's going to be a really valuable time, not only for the supervisor, but for you, the student as well. So you get what you need. So the second meeting is about this, demonstrating your thinking. Copy and paste, put this into your next email. Dear supervisor, can we meet for a second time and we need to talk about this? Plus, I also am having trouble with this. Can you give me some advice? Third session is the last one, and that's the Viva Voce. Now, the Viva Voce, copy and paste this and put this in your email. But also, just notice this. There's a bunch of questions, suggested reflection questions. So when you're setting up your third and final Viva Voce, this is at the end of it all, highlight, you can't answer all these questions in the one session. So you could highlight maybe 3, I've mentioned down here 4 or 6. Maybe say, yeah, if you can aim for like 3 to 6, 3 to 5, and say, in our meeting, these are the kind of questions the supervisor should ask. So this again is managing up. You tell the supervisor the questions that they should ask you so you can provide the right answer. Now this is super important because your supervisor actually has to write something about you and your engagement. So if you kind of help them by asking them, telling them these are the questions you should ask me because you've got a really good answer. So when the extended essay supervisor hears your answer, they can write their comments based on that final interview. And you arm them with some kind of key concepts or key ideas, key pieces of information that they can regurgitate on what they write on their document about engagement. So set that one up. Now, if your supervisor is a bit unclear about what to do, again, this is the term managing up, give this to them. It's like, supervisor, this is what I need you to do. Can you please write these kind of things for me as well? Now, just be aware, supervisors, I don't think will be offended by this. You're actually helping them because from my experience, extended essay supervisors are very, very busy with their teaching. And extended essay supervision time is like an add-on. So, and not a lot of time is invested in this. So be prepared for your extended essay supervisor not to know about this. So by you providing this to them, it's going to be a big help. Now do it in a polite way. Don't boss them around or they might get offended. So do it politely and say, can you please write these kind of things in your documentation? So what happens with Criterion E, the examiners will read your 500 words and they'll read your supervisor's words as well. So it's important that your supervisors do a good job. What they write will impact your grade. So therefore, if you need to, coach them, help them, because you want to get top marks for the engagement part of this essay. So here is the assessment criteria for engagement. So to get 6 out of 6, your engagement needs to be excellent. Your reflections on decision making and planning are evaluative and include references to the student's capacity to consider actions and ideas in response to challenges experienced in the research process. And the third bullet point here is these reflections communicate a high degree of of intellectual and personal engagement with a research focus and process of research, demonstrating authenticity, intellectual initiative, and or creative approaches in the student voice. So keep these 3 bullet points in mind whenever you're doing your reflection and whenever you're doing your interviews with your supervisor, and ask your supervisor to support you and help you so that you make sure you address all of these things. So when your assessor looks at your extended essay, you get 6 out of 6 for this part. Good luck.